You've got the wrong idea about personal knowledge management. I'm Lucas, here with my brother Jack. We are in part 8 of our deep dive into knowledge management systems. We've spent the last couple of weeks using everything we've learned thus far to revamp our own systems, use them, get some experience, figure out what's different. As always, being wrong is about embracing subjective experience over objective truth. We're not interested in being correct. We just want to explore our own insights and opinions. So, Jack, how's it gone for you?
Well, it's been an interesting journey. It's certainly taken a whole lot of introspection to sort of see how my workflow works and what will work best for me, because obviously we've talked a whole lot about how we want these systems to mold to ourselves. And I think the first thing that I always think about, because we emphasize this quite a lot, was I needed to find a good way to get stuff into my system. That was my first goal. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what's just a good way for me to get things into my system.
Call that capture, right?
Right, yeah, capture, exactly. I needed a way to capture my thoughts, the information giving to me, whatever that I had. Maybe it's a question that I want to research later, literally anything that I could have. I needed a place to get it in. So I just created a page, which I called Entry Zone. I created some buttons with different categories of things that I might want to list out. And then I sort of just funneled those into a place that I call the sort zone for me to sort of put away later. Because then we talked about this capture first mindset. We want to get our thoughts out there, and then once we have a little bit of time to sort of let them sit and simmer, we can go back and look at them later.
Yeah, this notion of capture first is definitely the piece that has stuck out the most to me as well. I think I've really been emphasizing that in my own system. I went for very minimal, I don't know, structure, I guess is the way I would put it. I'm very much in this mindset now where I just want to make it as frictionless to put things into the system as possible, and I'm really leaning on search functionality to find what I need, and I'm adding very little structure in terms of linking or tagging. I mean, I do think tagging is still important, but I'm putting very little effort into organization in terms of hierarchies of, oh, this belongs in this place, etc.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't have a whole lot of structure. I mean, I sort of have things sorted into categories. Literally just the areas of my life. I've got like work, I've got school, obviously I'm not using that right now. And then I've got personal. And then I've also got sort of a goals section and a to-do list that I'm still workshopping. But the personal section's got everything that could have to do with my personal life. Literally, I don't need to go through that. But it's sort of just if there's a new section that I think could fit something into it, I'm not going to try and like squeeze something else into it. I'm just going to make a new section. Like that's cool. Because I have, like you said, Notion has great search functionality. So I essentially just want to make it as easy as possible for me to get things in there and really to keep things sort of specific enough. Because once these ideas get really built out, you want a broad and diverse range of things to search through and look through. And then, like you said, tagging might be a little more important. I think that's something that you can almost sort to start to do once you've got all those ideas in place. What are the ideas that you want to connect? Because you sort of start to get a better look at them. And then you can start using even more search functionality. You sort of see where I'm going with this to start seeing the connections between your ideas. But you want the ideas to connect to be there in the first place.
Yeah, I actually am going to take a little bit of a different opinion on this. Like, I know where you're coming from, and I think you're approximately correct. It's just the idea of tagging. I think it actually isn't for me about taking the time to figure out what the right tag should be or might be to help me organize things. It's more like if I want to tag something, I want to throw that on there as quickly and put as little thought into it as possible. Notion is not a good example for using this stuff. They don't really have a great tagging system unless you kind of set up a database for yourself or do something a little bit fancier. And even like the Notion search functionality, yeah, Notion search. Actually, I'm not even a huge fan of Notion search per se. I think it's like fine, but I think there are plenty of other apps that have much better search functionality. And I just, when I said that, what I meant was leveraging inherent capabilities of knowledge management systems to look up however they do. And I think that what I have, I guess, in opposition to the method that I was using, which was much more manual of trying to remember where I had put things and manually going through, clicking folders, finding the page that I want, whatever. I've like become much more accustomed to anytime I'm opening a page, it's because I searched for something.
That's actually quite interesting. I don't do that because I mean sometimes I do, but it's not my first approach. It's probably because I don't have as many pages as you do to sort of search through, so I can find things pretty quickly and pretty easily. But I sort of think that you have that better evolution. I think that's sort of where I'm going to end up being because I already sort of do that from time to time because it is quite intensive to search through all the stuff that I have, and I'm not really so high on doing all of that. But even so, just with this like very minor bit of organization that I did, just categorizing stuff, getting things sorted into places, has helped so much organizing my ideas. And it just goes to show that the littlest bit of organization that you can do will sort of start to snowball into these other things. Because initially I wasn't using the search function. Then I began to use the search functions. And initially it was sort of hard for me to start sorting things into places. And then I'm like, okay, I don't need this much structure because I'm just using the search functionality. So now I can just sort of throw them into an area which is sort of connected so I can maybe see what ideas might be similar, and I can just let the search function do the rest. So yeah, I think that's actually quite interesting. I'm curious, what motivated you to start using the more search function, I guess, forward approach? What was the sort of organization that you used? What made you think about doing that?
Well, it was a combination of a couple of things. One of them, obviously, being the whole collection of conversations we've had up to this point. It was essentially realizing that retrieval, because, okay, we've talked about capture, but retrieval is the other crucial part of these systems. It's great if you can capture what you need, but what's just as important is how easy it is to get the pieces out when you need them. And I think that I realized trying to put that burden on myself of, relying on how I've organized things and knowing where I would want something to be, that was not working very well for me, or I guess it was not particularly efficient, is the way I would put it. So the other piece of it, I guess, is that this came from just as I've started this new job, seeing the way that my coworker operates. There's a lot of different strategies that he uses for writing code that I really like. And I think that a lot of the best developers are actually really heavily utilizing search functionality to get from file to file or even navigate within a file. And just kind of seeing that and trying to apply that to notes as well, I realized that, like, I think when you want to navigate around your knowledge and when you want to navigate around the things that are important to you, you usually have enough context to search for something that you'll be able to find it relatively quickly, and you won't have to go through that burdensome step of, okay, what is it that I'm trying to find? Where would I have likely put that? Okay, let me go look here. Okay, this page, does this make sense? It just saves you that mental load. Like, all you have to do is hit search and start typing, and immediately you're kind of at where you want to be. I think that's what I'm trying to do is this. We keep talking about offloading. What can the computer do that we can't do? And the computer can search over massive amounts of text very quickly. And so I think that maybe the simplest way to condense all that down is that I was looking for a way to offload the burden of retrieval that comes from trying to figure out where you put something.
That really makes me think. We talked about simplicity being one of these sort of guiding principles that we want to keep in mind here. And that definitely seems like that was one of the simplicity, and I will also say, like, sort of that ease of access. You don't want things to be too difficult to find. Those seem like the two things that were really sort of at the core of what you were trying to achieve. And I have to say that also sort of similarly runs in my DNA. I wanted to keep things easy to find, which is why I categorized them the way that I did. And I wanted to make, like you said, that whole retrieval process easier, because that was very hard, because I didn't actually have any real sort of organization. I sort of had everything just laid out, sort of like blocked together, is sort of how I did it. But now that I have these, pages and I can just sort of search for the things, it makes really what it has made it really nice is acting on my ideas, because a lot of my connected ideas are together already, and I can sort of start to see things that I've thought similarly about, so that the steps of taking action have actually become more and more and more engaging and more fun, because I can see ideas that I've had that were similar that I might not have thought would have been connected before. So taking action on the ideas has become more fun as well.
Right. I think that what I've experienced myself, and I mean, I only have a limited sample of people who I've seen work with note-taking systems, but the trend that I've noticed is that people put a lot of energy into the capture and organization stages, where they're trying to think a lot about the right setup, and they're not as focused on taking the actions. And so when you start to shift your mindset towards how can I use this stuff when I put it in here, like what do I actually want to accomplish, that's when you start to get real value out of the system. And so I think that we're both coming upon that same realization, that if we really focus on what we want to accomplish, what actions we want to take, we realize how little we need to actually motivate ourselves to do that, and how not just motivate ourselves, but how little we need to facilitate is maybe the better word, those actions. It's like, as long as it's in there and you can find it without too much effort, you'll be much more likely to succeed in whatever it is you're trying to do.
This is absolutely true, and I found this to be very common. I'm trying to remember. I had one project that it was very... Okay, here it was. So a couple of weeks back, I went to a board meeting for the Ferrari Club of America. And I was lucky enough to sort of sit, and I got a couple of minutes at the end to pitch that I'm a young aspiring journalist, and that I want to write articles for the magazine that they have. They have 2 magazines. And the president of the club at the head of the table was thrilled that he had someone young, because most of the members in the club are at least over the age of 35 or 40, a young member who wanted to give his angle on the club in the magazine. And he was like, absolutely, the September-October issue, which comes out in 2 months, I want to give you a great spot in so that people can see your writing. And I was incredibly happy that he just gave me that opportunity. But then once the meeting had concluded, he came up to me and he was so gracious to tell me that he has multiple friends who are journalists, and that he wanted to make the introduction to me for them. One of them works for Kelly Blue Book, the other one is the West Coast editor for Auto Week, and he wants to introduce me to all these people because he sees that I have a future doing this stuff. And I needed a way to organize the articles that I am going to want to write in the future. And I have all of these different little bits and bobs and memories that pop up, these like sort of, you can call them flashbulb memories that popped up. And I want to be able to capture them and put them into articles in the future. So using that sort of entry zone that I had, I sort of just have thought. I put thought in there, and then I can sort of just put the little title of, Ferrari Club Memory, and then I can write this short little description and then sort it later. And then I came back after maybe a week or so of doing that, and I had a plethora of memories and events that had happened that I was able to then put into my first article, which I just finished drafting. I'm going to send off to him soon. So what did I want to do with it is what I kept in mind. And then I sort of just started to use what I had, and it ended up working beautifully. So absolutely, like what you said, I thought of what I wanted to do with it, and it wasn't very hard to motivate me to get me to do it in the first place at all.
This is actually a great example. And I'm amazed that you hadn't told me about any of this before, so this is actually pretty cool to hear. But
I wanted to spring it on you in the episode because I thought it might bring something fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly the kind of a use case that I think is a perfect example of a valuable knowledge management system. All you're doing at this point is trying to make sure that you have the pieces you need to do the thing that matters to you. And so in knowing what you want and having that goal in mind, you were able to just find something, any little thing that worked for you. Throw this keyword in here, or just like literally make a note that this is for this particular project, and then worry about the details later. And I think that, I guess the point that I wanted to move to here is that, again, I'm thinking more and more, it's hard because the existing systems don't have these capabilities, but I'm thinking more and more about what I would like an AI-powered knowledge base to do for me. And one of the big pieces there for me is this stuff of like, as long as I just provide just enough context to be able to sort it later or find it later easily, I think that AI assistants will be able to pick up on that and do more of the automatic grouping and consolidation and suggestions. So I'm trying to work with that mindset, even though those capabilities aren't quite there yet.
Yeah, you sort of have to work with the ideas that are going to be coming towards you in the future. And I think that's really important because you can't be trying to work and only think about what is available to you at this time. You need to really, really think about what's going to be coming towards you so you can be ahead of the curve just a little bit. Not too much that what you're doing isn't possible, but that it has the sort of availability and the capability to take advantage of things that will be coming at you in the future. And I think we've sort of done a really, really good job of doing this. And I could probably find an example of it that's not really coming to my head right now. But like you said, yeah, actually, giving just the littlest bit of context will help AI eventually, not too far in the future, be able to sort your notes for you. So again, it's not trying to be too far ahead, but it's leaving room so that when that far ahead comes at you, you're ready to take advantage of it. I think that's really important.
No, I think you actually already gave us the example. It's like literally if you just put like Ferrari journaling, like as long as those words somehow make it in like as a title or even just like in the body of the note. I guess my point is that doing that is kind of enough to give you that ability to find and group and categorize the things together. It's if you just put that level of intentionality, I guess that's the key to what I'm trying to talk about here is like not just taking notes. That's the other piece that I've come to understand is that it's like being very intentional in what you want to do with that note. I mean, it goes right back to the same point. It's like knowing where you want to go, having that goal in mind allows you to be much more clear and directed in how you input the information. So it's that notion of intentionality in I know how and why this note is useful, and if as long as I include just that context, that minimal context necessary to remind me why I care, that's all that matters.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's right. That's what I sort of I think actually makes that such a good example. That like hits the nail right on the head perfectly. Yeah. And I'm now curious, was there anything like that happened for you, or was this sort of just a nice way to take a new angle at organizing your notes? Were there any nice little moments that you had like that, or was it sort of just a nice way to revamp the stuff that you had and make it a little bit easier for you to use?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any like massive breakthrough for me. I think that a big part of it was just getting into the habit of taking notes differently or collecting my knowledge differently. And I think that again, yeah, for me, the like learning to rely more on search, learning to care less about where I'm putting something, not having such deeply nested note structures, all of those things, it was just kind of moving me in the right direction and getting me to start thinking about how I might even build my own system to kind of do the AI functionality that I'm looking for while, until maybe some of the bigger note apps figure it out for themselves. But I guess insight wise, yeah, I think it was for me, the biggest takeaways were that I need to be very intentional in what I put in and why. And I need to make it as easy to find those things via search as possible. And I think, I'll try to think of anything else, but those were definitely the pieces that I think made the biggest difference in my workflow.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think I can side with that. I don't really know if there's much more that we need to go into unless something pops up for you real quick. I think that we've hit the big points here. You should be intentional with what you do. I think that one of the big takeaways that I like here is that you want to sort of keep what you want to do with it in mind, not what you want it to do. I think if you focus more on what you want to achieve with it rather than what you want it to do for you, you'll sort of end up having it do what you want it to do for you better than if you sort of just think about that. Oh, what do I want my system to encapture? No, think about what you want to do with it. How are you going to use it? And then you can build the tools around it. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway. Is there any other closing thoughts that come to mind or that you'd like to say before I can take us home?
Well, so I also started a new job when we last met and started the adventure of reorganizing these systems. And I did also, so like it wasn't just reorganizing my own personal notes. I also like got to start a knowledge base from scratch, which was kind of interesting. And I like took these ideas into that from the very beginning. I do think that I added a little bit of additional structure, but it's mostly just like sort of grouped by task. So when I'm doing a particular, like when I'm working on something, I literally just have one page where I just dump any of the thoughts, the anything that I've tried thus far, any actions that I've taken, so that I can quickly go back and reference. And I think that I'm trying to be not so strict in how I structure it, and just as long as I know that it's in there, I will find it. I think having that mentality has been the most helpful to me. It's like I'm using it more as a place to just make sure that nothing gets lost. I think that's the one big insight for me is, yeah, as long as I've offloaded it from my mind, that's a win.
This is actually a good point. I think we should take some time on this. You don't want to lose any of the ideas that you have, because that, I always found what happened. It's like, oh shit, I forgot that. That is like the worst feeling, especially when people like you or me cherish the ideas and the thoughts that we have so much because they can have so much fruit regardless of how insignificant they may seem. So being able to keep track of them and not lose any of those, little flash bulbs of things that may pop into your mind sort of also removes this like layer of stress. You sort of start to let your ideas flow a little bit more freely inside of your head because you're not so worried about trying to keep track or lose other ones in your flow. You have a place to put your flow when you want to get your flow out there. So it's sort of like compounds, right? I think I talked about this in another episode of compounds. You can get your ideas out better, organize them better, use them better, but you can also get more of them because you're not worried about holding on to the old ones.
Yeah, love that. I guess my last thought, and then you can feel free to, take us home however you want. But basically, yeah, if there's nothing worse than realizing that I had thought about something and didn't write it down and can't remember what it was. So I think that my driving force has been, like make sure you note it all down. And I definitely keep having this opinion that I would rather have that stuff written down, even if it is somewhat hard to find right now, because I am so confident that the next level of knowledge management systems will be able to find details and surface them for you better. So I would rather have the ideas in there unstructured than try to find the perfect place for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just sort of like I said, leave it open for the opportunity for those future systems to come in and aid you and better you. Don't be so far ahead that it's just weird or incomprehensible, but leave some room for the innovation that is coming at you. And yeah, like you said, I don't really have anything else that I would like to touch on here. But if you guys want to find more Wrong Idea content, you can find us at The Wrong Idea on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And until next week, keep being wrong.
Got a thought that challenges the norm? We want to hear it. Post your wrong idea with the hashtag Wrong Idea. That's RONG idea. And join the conversation. Who knows? Your perspective might just be featured in a future episode. Remember, in a world of endless perspectives, all ideas are wrong ideas. Until next time, keep thinking, keep challenging, and keep embracing the unconventional.